Good evening. This is May 11th, the Great Lakes Renewable Energy Association's Renewable Energy Seminar Series. Tonight, we have a presentation on the Lansing Solar Home Project as a model for climate justice and renewable energy. And it is going to be presented by our esteemed speaker, David Arnosti, who was a professor in biochemistry and molecular biology at Michigan State University and a member of the board of the Michigan Interfaith Power and Light Board of Directors. My name is Mark Clevey. I'm your host. I'm a lifetime member with GLREA. I'm a former vice president and the current secretary of GLREA and your host for this session. Our financial sponsors for the Renewable Energy Series are the Michigan Department of Environment, Great Lakes and Energy, McNaughton and McKay, and Harvest. By members and stakeholders to educate and advocate for renewable energy in Michigan. You can join the GLREA solution by going to www.glrea.org and click on our membership page. Our Zooms are part of a monthly series started by my esteemed colleague, John Sarber, who's helping out tonight as well. The first Thursday of each month, we have Ann Arbor Solar Stories, hosted by Julie Roth, who is the manager of Solarize Ann Arbor and running a very successful program in Ann Arbor. Second Thursday of the ninth is myself. I run the renewable energy seminars. The third Thursday is Detroit Solar Stories, hosted by Diane Van Buren, who's a member of our board of directors. And the fourth Thursday of the month is hosted by John Sarber. It's my solar stories covering the remainder of Michigan. Also, we have Q&A sessions that go on as part of that as well. The Renewable Energy Seminar Series that I operate covers topics of interest to clean energy users, renewable energy businesses, advocates, and stakeholders. Our seminars include content ranging from technology to business to public policy. It's a Zoom event held the second Thursday of each month from 7 to 8. Any questions you have, you can contact me at my Gmail account, which is mclevey123@gmail.com. I ask that you remember to please mute yourself and hold all your questions to the end of the presentation. You can raise your hand under reactions and ask a question. I'll call on you and we'll get your questions answered. So as a renewable energy educator, co-founder of Michigan Interfaith Power and Light, and host of the GLR Renewable Energy Seminars, it's my sincere pleasure to welcome David Arnosti, professor again of biochemistry at Michigan State University. Tonight, David will discuss the capital area chapter of the Michigan Interfaith Power and Light and his partnership with Absolute Solar and Ingham County's Land Bank to bring renewable energy to low-income housing. The Lansing Solar Home Project involves a cooperative effort of over a dozen houses of worship in the greater Lansing area to install and purchase and install 7-kilowatt array on a new all-electric home being built by the Ingham County Land Bank as part of their development of affordable energy-efficient housing in the central city. One of the reasons we want David to come talk about this because we think it's a great model that other communities could easily do themselves. And as you'll notice from David's presentation tonight, teaming up with companies, the Land Bank and solar companies in Maple is a partnership that's available almost anywhere in the state. I'd be hard pressed to figure out where it couldn't work. So with that, you can go to maples.org and Lansing Solar Home to get some more information about it. And David's email is arnosti@msu.edu. His cell phone is there as well. So David, I welcome you to the May 2023 Renewable Energy Seminar and very much look forward to your presentation.
Mark, thank you so much. I will share some slides and introduce two of our guests who've joined us this evening to provide further perspectives about our exciting project. And thank you everybody for attending this evening. I'm just going to check that people can see the slides here. I don't have it in presentation mode. I just have it on desktop mode because sometimes it's less likely to be bulky. So we're going to stick with that if that looks good. So a model for climate justice and for a renewable future, this is something that I'd really enjoy getting some feedback and further ideas. Joining us this evening are Rob Kircher from Absolute Solar, Roxanne Case, the executive director at the Ingham County Land Bank, who've been our partners in this project. And just to introduce your speaker, I'm a biochemist at Michigan State University, Spartan green during the day, and during evenings, I'm also green. I belong to the green team at our Hazlet Community Church, and I'm a board member volunteering at Michigan Interfaith Power and Light. So Michigan Interfaith Power and Light is part of a national network of IPL state affiliates. Our Michigan group has been around for some 20 years. Here's a recent board meeting from last summer. We work across the state with houses of worship and faith communities to help them realize their commitment to sustainability and climate justice. One of the projects currently being conducted by Michigan Interfaith Power and Light is so-called Sacred Spaces, whereby they are guiding 11 low-income congregations across the state in using a over $1 million grant that came from Michigan's Department of Environment, Great Lakes and Energy for energy rehab on their physical plant. That's just one of the projects that the Michigan Interfaith Power and Light has been involved in. So as we know, the world, as portrayed in this recent cartoon from The Economist, is facing some severe challenges. We had COVID, whose official emergency declaration just expired, and right behind it, a much bigger challenger climbing into the ring of climate change. And the IPCC, Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Justice, has emphasized just how much of a change and a challenge face us. Perhaps revealingly, the cover of their recent report had solar panels on some housing, which I think is interesting. So we know that this is important for saving our planet and saving our future, doing something to mitigate the effects of climate change and work against it and try to bring our economy and society to a renewable future as quickly as possible. As University of Michigan scientist Jonathan Overpeck has noted, in addition to these climate justice and environmental concerns, there's also quite a bit of geopolitical considerations here that our overdependence on fossil fuels had led to a disastrous dependence on so-called petro thugs. There are a lot of different communities that are going to be impacted and are being impacted by climate change. Among them, of course, are young people, and my colleagues over in pediatrics are publishing articles about their professional work as pediatric psychiatrists. They're finding more and more young people who are super stressed out under the realistic picture that their future is in danger. And this leads to the question of climate justice or injustice, so what climate justice means and why we should care. In a nutshell, climate justice considerations consider that the burdens of climate change are falling disproportionately on people who are the least responsible and least able to adapt. If you go to this carbonbrief.org website, you can actually plot over the decades and century of which nations have contributed most to the amount of accumulated greenhouse gases in the atmosphere and how much of our climate 1.5 degree budget is being used up. And it's quite clear that the populous nations are not the ones that necessarily put all the carbon in the atmosphere. However, last year, the passage of the Inflation Reduction Act provided a unique and significant opportunity for us as individuals, as communities, as different levels of society to really impact where our nation's greenhouse gas emissions are going to go. And targets, if you look at these curve trending down for US net greenhouse emissions, with implementing different programs through this legislation, we could be doing a lot better job than we would if we didn't. So what actually are these provisions? Well, one of the most critical ones for people in places like Lansing, Michigan, where I live, or any place across the state is that for the first time, the federal government will partner with entities like houses of worship, municipalities, tribal governments, municipal utilities to pay for part of the project. The project could be renewable energy in the form of solar electricity or geothermal installations. And these entities don't necessarily pay federal income taxes, but they would get a direct payment. And in some cases, the 30% could be 40 or even 50%, depending on the communities that are being impacted by this. So all of a sudden, we have an offer from we the people through our federal government of substantially supporting development of these projects, but it's really up to us at all levels to figure out what those projects are and where they're going to be. So what about solar panels? I've mentioned that that's been an interest. If you look at this map of the United States, the Southwest has the most solar energy raining down on it. And Michigan is not the sunniest place in the whole country. So for many years, I just thought that Michigan solar panels, that doesn't make sense. Well, Lansing, Michigan gets about 1,500 kilowatt hours per square meter. That's the amount of energy you would have falling on your roof if you lived in Michigan. 1,500. And as it turns out, that's about 50% more than Germany. And Germany has really gone ahead in implementing solar. This diagram that shows a yellow banana-like shape projecting from the daily energy production represents solar electricity in Germany. And over half of the electricity in that country is produced from renewables, and much of it from solar panels on people's houses. So even in somewhat cloudy areas, solar electricity has gotten so efficient and so cost effective that you really can produce a lot of your energy right there. And some solar installations are gigantic. Consumers Energy has some large expanses already at area universities. These industrial projects can be built at scale. They can be very cheap. But some of the downsides are that you might be putting it on agricultural land. And what about those boutique panels on people's houses? That's already built. That's already like land taken away from other uses. So actually, grid-tied solar on top of houses is what we would consider now a reliable and mature technology. So Absolute Solar can come and put solar panels on your roof if it gets sun and pretty much predict how much electricity it'll make in your payback, and no muss, no fuss, really very little maintenance. However, there's this issue of upfront costs, and that's where we take a look at the climate justice aspect here in Michigan. So according to elevatenp.org, the average energy bill in Michigan is about $2,700 between electricity and natural gas or propane. Now, $2,700 is a considerable amount of money, and if you're paying more than 6% of your income, that's considered an energy burden for electricity and heating. You would have to be earning $45,000 to meet that average. And more than a third of Michigan households are considered low income and earn less than $30,000. And low income families average 15% of their income on energy. So where would there be money to like put up solar panels? It's just not going to happen. So this energy burden really disproportionately affects low income families with children, minorities, seniors who are on fixed income. So it's a really unfair opportunity cost to take advantage of renewables. So in the Lansing area, a number of us in different houses of worship have started working together some years back. University Lutheran has a community church, and Islamic Center of East Lansing teamed up to do a energy efficiency and fundraiser together with Michigan IPL. And we did a carbon fund fundraiser and raised over $5,000 to help Haven House Homeless Shelter do energy rehab in East Lansing. So we had kind of gotten in the swing of things with some partnership with Michigan Interfaith Power and Light on working together and helping at a community level. Then during the pandemic, a larger group of us formally organized into a capital area chapter, and we partnered with a very high impact community center in South Lansing called the Southside Community Coalition. This is an organization that has been around for over 20 years and delivers important social services in a low-income part of our city, and also emphasizes healthy environment and healthy food. They have a hoop house next door, and our group of over a dozen houses of worship did a fundraiser, and we financed a 13 kilowatt solar array on top of the community coalition roof. One, bringing solar to this part of the city for the first time, supplying all of their electricity, saving them thousands of dollars, and being a demonstration project because they have partners throughout the community where we could say, well, you know, this is how it works, and this is what it looks like, and here's our utility bill. We dedicated that last year, and that was really our first big kickoff. Listed here are some of the current active groups. These are houses of worship where we have members from each one of them who've been involved in our past and current fundraiser, and we've been trading ideas about doing things at our own houses of worship. Most recently, the Presbyterian Church of Okemos just dedicated their solar array, which you can see in the grass in the back just off Okemos Road. And the sharing of information and expertise has been a great way that this group has been moving things ahead, both at the local level of individual houses of worship, but also in the community. So we heard through Chris Wisniewski at Edgewood about Ingham County Land Bank's work to develop new low-income housing in the city. And it turns out that on the right-hand side is an arrow pointing to the Southside Community Coalition, where we did our solar project last year. And on the left-hand side is a red arrow pointing to Avalon Street, where the Ingham County Land Bank had planned to build a new high-efficiency structure. And we said, how about if this new low-income housing build incorporated solar as part of renewable energy to make this a affordable house from the utility standpoint, and also as an example in Lansing of how things can work. So the Ingham County Land Bank had already worked with a contractor to spec out a 1,000 square foot house, and working with Absolute Solar, then we proposed adding to that a solar array, which we would do the fundraising for. The house has all electric heat through air source heat pumps and hot water, estimated based on the R20 walls and R50 ceiling that it would have a lower than average utility bill of around $1,700. But with the solar panels, most of that electricity would be produced on an annual basis by the homeowner, him or herself. So working with Absolute Solar, and they've been very good in partnering with the contractor who's putting up the house, they designed a system with high quality North American built solar panels and other components, including the inverters and optimizers. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, just last week, the panels were installed. This is now a 7.4 kilowatt system. The house, shown at the lower right at a snowier time of day, still has some pieces to be finished, but it's virtually ready to switch on. The house currently belongs to the land bank, and I'll ask Roxanne to explain how the land bank finds appropriate families and that process. So there's been quite a bit of publicity about this. Here is Roxanne speaking at People's Church, discussing this project. We had a press conference at the end of March where the Climate Action Campaign was looking at our community, and they discovered on the web news about this project. And so Julie Brixey, State Representative, and Lori Welch, the Lansing Sustainability Manager, came and spoke about these issues. We had the backdrop of the Southside Community Center where our first solar project was. And we also had community contributions from Hootie Legal Services, who pro bono helped us work out a memo of understanding so that we could work between the Ingham County Land Bank, the contractor, and Michigan Interfaith Power and Light. So thank you to Hootie Legal Services for their donation of expertise. The fundraiser is still ongoing. You can find it at Michigan Interfaith Power and Light Lansing Solar Home. And your support is greatly appreciated in bringing this first, but definitely not last, aspect of renewable energy to lower income communities. And looking forward, what we would like to see is that municipal entities and private nonprofits would partner and use the new advantages of the Inflation Reduction Act to, for instance, put solar panels on top of Lansing Housing Commission apartments. Those low-income families could buy electricity at a reduced rate. And so I'm going to ask Rob Kircher and Roxanne Case to provide some perspective from their side of things, and then we'll open the meeting to questions.
Great. Well, thank you, David. I don't know, Roxanne, if you want to start, or I can jump in. I don't know which order we want to go in. Doesn't matter.
I don't know if it matters.
Okay. Well, you feel free to take the lead if you'd like.
Okay.
I don't mind either
Sure,
way.
I can start. So
Sure.
just give you a little background on the land bank. The land bank was established in 2005. I don't know how many people know about land banks. We were the second land bank in Michigan to be established. And basically what land banks do, we were developed during the housing crisis in 2005, 2006, 2007. Basically because of all the foreclosures that went through, the counties and the state departments couldn't handle them. So the land bank is a tool basically established to manage the foreclosure process that does not get sold off. So it takes 3 years for a foreclosure to go in to be processed, right? And at that third year, if the folks don't pay taxes, then they go into foreclosure. Now, the county treasurer does not, none of the treasurers, none of the municipalities want houses. So our goal is to always help prevent the foreclosure process. That's the first step. But if it doesn't happen and it ends up going into foreclosure, the county treasurer has to sell those properties off. What doesn't get sold off comes to the land bank. And then what the land bank does is we have to figure out, we're a small office, there's 6 of us. At one time we had over 1,200 properties. And so we sit down and figure out, what do we do with these properties? Are they viable properties? Do they need to be demolished? Do they need to be rehabbed? Is the stock still good? Is the foundation still good? Is the framing still good? And from that, we make a disposition decision as to what to do with them. We've unfortunately had to tear down over 760 houses and commercial properties. We have done many new constructions and many renovations from those properties. From the demolitions that we've completed, we have many vacant lots. As of at the end of January, we had over 600 vacant lots. And recently, because of COVID and the American Rescue Plan, we gained some monies to actually build on the infill properties that we demolished. It's very exciting for us. We're all in. And so what we decided from the beginning, I have to tell you back farther, going back, our previous county treasurer, who was Eric Schertzing, he was very big on sustainability, deconstruction, any kind of recycling that we could do, we would do. So during our demolitions, we consistently tried to take anything out of the houses that could be reused, take into St. Vincent's de Paul, any property, any pieces that were left that no one wanted, we tried to reuse. And so we have a pole barn, some full, a corner full of salvaged materials, everything from windows to doors, wood floors, beams, trim, all that kind of stuff. We've also completely deconstructed homes from the top down and saved all the old dimensional lumber. This gets us into, so we've already been trying to be sustainable and trying to keep things out of the landfills. But now that this money has come into play, we want to infill into our vacant lots. And so we are completing new construction, single family homes and some sets of condos. In our sustainability mindset, we said we need to do some all electric homes, no gas hookup to them at all. And how do we sustain this? And solar panels was an option. So we determined properties. It's very hard to find a property that doesn't have trees in the city, in areas that doesn't have trees that would be on that south side. We have a few properties. We connected with David and Rob, and we gained this partnership. And so what we're doing is creating some affordable housing with solar panels on them. The solar panels will actually take the house down to almost net zero. We're pretty excited about it. We are going to be tracking it. It is a brand new thing here in the city of Lansing. And we can't be more excited to work with Interfaith Power Light and Absolute Solar on these projects. So, anybody have any questions before Rob takes over, or questions in the end, right? I'm sorry.
Let's do questions in the end.
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks. Rob, you're up.
All right. Well, thank you, Roxanne and David, both of you. Obviously, it's a very exciting project, and appreciate this topic today, this evening. This is very exciting. And David, I think that the presentation was excellent and encompassed a lot of the challenges we face. And particularly, I loved that the graph on the solar irradiance and showing it, the comparison with Germany. I think that's quite eye-opening. Yeah, so just a little bit of background about Absolute Solar. I'm a co-founder along with Dan Bacon, who we actually met running the Environmental Law Society at Michigan State College of Law, where I've been very focused on renewable sustainability and climate change since my undergrad at MSU, and then moved on to Michigan State College of Law, and that's when we kind of decided that in order to make the most difference as quickly as possible, we needed to find a way to actively take carbon off the grid. So the bottom-up approach, as opposed to a top-down, change policy through precedent, which is easier said than done. And so we've had the privilege of being, able to make some wonderful connections and partnerships, locally around, the Lansing, Central Michigan area, and have grown into, it's still a small business, but we are very excited to be able to be providing, residential, commercial, municipal, solar services, whether it's, ground mount, flat roof, like south side, all sorts of different options there. And it's an exciting time for this. The technology is moving very quickly. And that paired with the IRA, it's creating some wonderful opportunities, especially for these underserved communities. And so it was just a very exciting opportunity in general. And I think it's a great partnership that we found here. And honestly, working with nonprofits and stuff have been some of the most rewarding experiences from the installer's point of view, like Southside Community Coalition, University Lutheran, Islamic Center, all wonderful projects. And really, I can't say enough about The intention behind this, I think it's going to really provide a wonderful example that can be built upon. When you combined, the heat pump electrification, and then the aspects of the IRA that provide that direct pay incentive, all of a sudden something that was very, out of reach becomes much more obtainable. And I'm excited for the example that this can provide. Southside, I think, was a great sort of starting point. I wish the IRA was in place at that time, but it still worked out wonderfully. That was the 13.68 system that ballast mounted, so no penetration points, which is wonderful. Yes, as far as the Avalon Street project, you are correct that construction is complete. So that has been tested and verified. It is working great. We are just at that final stage of final permit approval that we expect next week, and then we submit to BWL, and that should be up and running very soon, which is extremely exciting. And it's been a great process so far. We've learned some things along the way that I think will be beneficial in the future for future projects. But one thing that was really nice, I think, about this one is the coordination with the builder allowed for interior conduit routing and some of the nice things that will make this look even nicer and be even better example, moving forward. And I think that is a great model. And for these new builds, it does open up a lot of opportunity, to be able to coordinate and along the way to really set up the most ideal, home and living environment for these families that they absolutely deserve. And it's all thanks to, the generous donations and the help of the IRA, which is a very, very exciting piece of legislation. We're all eagerly are waiting for a little more guidance on how to achieve these additional tax credits and things like that with domestic content and some of these, other areas and locations that can add to the incentive. But it's very bright future in that regard, very exciting. I think there'll be a lot we'll learn from this first project too, just because obviously we don't necessarily know that this particular family's consumption and how they use their electricity. So that will get easier, I think, once we, get some experience and people can move in and start using the home and these new electrical components. And then, we can always update systems, obviously, over time as well. And the IRA will still be there. So, overall, I'm very excited and just very thankful that we have the opportunity, to be a part of this program. And I'm very optimistic that this can become a really wonderful example that can be used. I think, Mark, you'd said all over the state. There's no reason that this model can't be applied everywhere. And I really hope that it can be, held up as an example for what's possible. So again, thank you very much for allowing me to be a part of this in our company. We're excited, and thanks again for hosting this as well.
Outstanding. David, back to you.
Well, thank you very much, Mark. I was just applauding Roxanne's and Rob's comments and contributions. I think it's time to open the floor for questions. I saw one question pop up in the chat already. Okay.
Again, go to reactions and raise your hand. That's probably the easiest way to do it, or we can take them right off the chat. So let me start the bidding here with Rob for a second. Rob, Michigan is one of the leaders in the United States for getting rid of net metering, which has allowed the utilities to drop the reimbursement rate for solar from distributed systems. Sort of ignorance, not a great thing to be known for, but that's reality. One of the ways around that is for people who own solar systems to upgrade with batteries, so that they never have to sell, and lose money by selling their green power to the utilities. They can just offset, fracked gas and coal-powered electricity instead. So was storage put into this system, or is it storage ready, or how is the thought about storage done? I know I asked you on the other project that you did, there were some cost constraints in that one. What about this? 7 kilowatts, that's a large system for a family. So that.
Sure. No, I'm happy to speak to that a little bit. Yeah, so 7.4 kilowatt system, I think, is technically where this one ended up. It does not have battery backup built in. I think the fact that the land bank is on BWL's grid is helpful. BWL is a great partner in that regard. I think with battery backup, though, that is something that absolutely is going to be incorporated moving forward. Not necessarily with this project yet. I would say, again, I think we'll learn a lot once the family is using the home over time, get a sense of how things are working in their consumption patterns. I will say, yes, while battery technology is, I think, an integral part of kind of almost, countering our loss of net metering, although I will say I'm optimistic that may not be the situation forever, and that's a whole other can of worms.
Let us hope.
Yeah. I have my own plans anyways. But with that said, right now, and this is what I always share with people, is that, batteries are great. They work wonderfully. There's a ton of programming ability where you can actually program to do that time of use offset, so you can avoid the distributed generation rate. You can also have it draw from the grid and discharge from the grid at the, higher or lower time of use rates. However, with that said, battery pricing is still kind of behind as far as where the photovoltaic material is as far as price points. It's I always kind of tell people it's similar to computers. When they came out, they're thousands of dollars and couldn't do much, and then they got better and better, and now you can go to Best Buy and get a laptop for pretty cheap.
Right.
Just needs some time to continue to develop in the market. I think the IRA is going to be pivotal with that, because there's a lot of incentives for domestic production to get that ramped up. And then with domestic production of batteries, you can satisfy the domestic content requirement, which will make them more accessible again. So I think with batteries, they are going to play a huge part. But for budgetary constraints, especially for like nonprofit and donation-based projects, batteries can be a little bit tough to add because they do come at a premium still. And the market just needs a chance, I think, to catch up and start to level out and become a little bit closer to the rest of the PV material.
Right.
So
let's take a question from the chat, and then we'll go to John Sarver. Okay, John. The question chat, this was for Dave Curtis. I guess, Roxanne, you're one of the ones probably can help answer this. The question is, I'm curious if the Lansing area has the pushback against large solar or wind installation that I see in rural areas like Southwest Livingston County.
So I can say that the Board of Water and Light and the City of Lansing are working on trying to obtain and install solar fields in the area. They have talked about doing it down near the Alfreda Schmidt Center on the south side. There's a school right there, and to tell you the truth, I can't think of the name of the school. There's a lot of property there. They're talking about doing it there. They're working through that. I heard there was some back and forth on it, so I don't really know where that's at now. There aren't a lot of places, obviously, in the city to do solar, so it is a prime thing to complete them and install them on roofs, of course, right? So I think that there is less issue here in the city of Lansing and Ingham County than there are in other counties, honestly. But that might just be a personal opinion on my end. And just knowing what they're trying to do down by the Alfreda Schmidt Center, I think is great. So
I can give a little sidebar on this. Back in the 80s, when the purple laws came through, and utilities had to get power generated by qualified facilities, we did a demonstration project at Oakland Community College and actually put up the first utility interconnected solar system in Michigan to work out the technical issues and model all this stuff. And Lansing Board of Water and Light was one of the underwriters of that. So on the first time that a solar system was interconnected with a utility in the state, Lansing Board of Water and Light was at the table, and they put up $25,000. This is 30 some odd years ago. That was real money, and so I've always seen them really forefront of this kind of stuff. So my sense is if they had the land to put large systems up, they would be doing it. So John Sarver, you're up.
Yeah, well, great presentation. Thank you. And boy, that's going to be a great house for somebody to buy. Roxanne, could you tell us a little about selling the home and then what happens to the money?
Yes, so so we are planning on selling it to a low to moderate income family. It's a 2-bedroom. Just giving you a heads up, a 2-bedroom, 1,040 square feet home on a slab, okay? And so our goal is to sell it to a good affordable family. They will have to know that we are going to be tracking it. Board of Water and Light is going to be tracking and tracking the data to determine how this is all going to work out and how we can use this moving forward. Obviously, there's still some issues and some still connections that we have to work out through the buyer. We haven't got a buyer yet for it yet. We haven't put it up for sale. It's still not completed. I walked through it, as a matter of fact, yesterday and thought, okay, this contractor has a lot more to do. We got to get this ball rolling. So, but we're kind of excited about it. I want to say, don't quote me here, but I want to say that the pre-appraisal came in at like $160,000. Now, I feel like that's too high for that house. So we're going to have to figure that out, because this house needs to go to a low to moderate income leveled home. And when I say low to moderate, those are folks that are low income, but also workforce housing. Folks that are going to be working possibly at the new GM plant that's coming in, right? Folks that are going to be working at possibly the Amazon plant, you know. So this is also considered workforce housing as well.
Excellent.
So we are going to be tracking it. We're kind of excited about the tracking. I know Board of Water and Light's looking forward to it as well.
And
So we have
does the money go back into a fund for additional projects, or do you plan? So you said you had about 5 sites that might be good.
Right.
Are you going to do those 5 sites?
Thank you. I'm sorry about that. Yes. So what we do is, so you know that here in Lansing area, the construction of a new house is way over the top of the purchase of the property, right? So there is no extra income in this property at all. As a matter of fact, the county, through the Housing Trust Fund, through Ingham County, they are covering the gap between the construction and the sale of the house. So there is actually no extra money, unfortunately. But in that fact, we are doing another house next year, very similar with solar panels. And we are starting a set of 5 condos. They will have solar panels on them as well. That is on Saginaw Street, right across from the old St. Lawrence Hospital. And we're hoping to break ground on those this summer. And Rob and Absolute Solar is involved in that project as well.
So there's a question in the chat. It talks about how we scale this, that you know, what can be done to influence city council, state legislatures, et cetera, and our utilities supporting or impeding the progress. I'm going to change the question a little bit and put it in a different context. There are 42 municipal utilities in Michigan. None of them, though they are separate and distinct from the investor-owned utilities that handle most of the state. Municipal utilities see their customers when they go to the grocery store, when they go to church, when their kids go to school, and it's effectively nonprofit oriented. So their cost structure and stuff is totally different. So I guess one of the things that I see that makes this project really work is you've got this combination of the. Last time I checked, there's over 12,000 houses of worship in the state of Michigan, and I'll just bet some of those are in the 42 municipal utilities. We have solar contractors like Rob and Absolute Solar all over the state, and GLREA knows all of them. And I don't know about land banks, but I assume they're spread across the state fairly evenly. But if we just said, oh, where's the low-hanging fruit here? Assuming this project is going to be a major success, and it looks like it is, just overlaying, you know, where our MIPLs positioned, where's land banks, and where our municipal utilities. and go knock on the door of the mayor and city manager and start a conversation, that is how we scale this. Because, you know, throwing ourselves at this brick wall of the legislature trying to, you know, get change so many things when they got so many other things going on. We need to figure out how to spend this IRA money, not change rules, and net metering is not going to change. All those things are going to be, we'll figure that out. But right now, there's a great big golden pile of money laying there, and take this project and replicate it in the 42 municipal utilities. And next year we'll have, you know, 42 projects like this going on. That's scaling, and then do 10 more every year after that. To me, that's how we get this thing done. You know, we go where the ground is fertile and we plant our seeds.
I can also add a comment there. So
Please.
Part of the plan with the Avalon Street House is it's just on the block from the Southside Community Coalition solar project. And when we do a dedication at the Avalon Street House, we will, of course, invite our candidates who are running for US Senate and our local politicians and people from Lansing who have definitely indicated that they know removing the cap on solar installations on houses is a priority, but it needs to get done. So by having something where you can go look at it, this is what it looks like. This is going to be in your city, in your congressional district, in your state. This is how we see things, and this is the scale of what's possible. Having that concrete example can change minds, and I can attest to that because 6 years ago, Michigan Interfaith Power and Light statewide connected has a community church people with Edgewood Church people in East Lansing who were already a little ways down the road of thinking of putting up solar panels. There were no houses of worship in Lansing area anywhere with any solar projects in 2016. We talked to each other and sort of talked each other into doing it. And our two congregations were the first to do solar projects. And of course, we talked some more, and pretty soon the Islamic Center and University Lutheran, there's a beautiful story there that they had been talking about it, but hadn't gotten to the point of building it. And Islamic Center put up panels and donated $25,000 to their neighbors at University Lutheran towards their solar project. And of course, University Lutheran has been then very active in supporting these community projects. They're expanding there. So it's sometimes not apparent how do you scale it, except that if you can envision it and see it, and of course, if you've got financial instruments like IRA, people will, working towards a goal, will figure out individual ways. So Roxanne, I wanted to just comment that until tonight, I didn't know that the land bank has hard plans to build more solar projects on their upcoming, and I'm delighted to hear that. I think that that's a wonderful leadership position for the land bank to be in, and will certainly inspire other parts of our state and local government to follow suit. So kudos.
Yes, thank you. We are a partner with the city of Lansing, and the city of Lansing is trying to move forward with their sustainability action plan. And part of that is for renewable energy, eliminating our carbon footprint. And so as a partner, we're going to do what we can. And we started off doing deconstruction and salvaging material and recycling as much as possible. This is just another step going forward.
I would say also that, you know, municipalities, again, they have tremendous freedom to do things that they want. For example, the municipal utility in Harbor Springs, Michigan, where I have a second house, they that city voted to maintain full net metering, even though the utilities were able to drop it and encourage the rest of us to do it. The state law, those local municipals can do lots of things with this. And their rationale was, you know, we we get them to buy more green power. The community benefits from this. It's a business development thing. And the money that they get from the solar is spent back plowed right back into the local community. So, there's a lot as we start to scale this stuff and work and ask the questions and come in with land bank and start looking for where we can tighten this thing up even more and make it even better. Municipals, again, they have a sustainability plan. They got a target to hit. If you can hit the target, you can be rewarded for that in some communities. So Roxanne, I couldn't be more happy with what you guys are doing. It's fabulous. I want to make sure that we got about 10 minutes left, but I want to make sure, David, that you tell us again, if we go to mipl.org, so that's www.miipl.org, and we're clicking on what so we can make a donation to support this?
Yes, that's Lansing Solar Home, and I'll put that in the chat also.
Good. Excellent. Yes, I strongly encourage people to open your wallets. Any other questions?
I have one additional comment.
Sure.
I think as far as the scaling aspect of this, when we get better guidance from the IRA, I think it will make it easier because we're going to be able to have more clarity for people as far as what incentives can be stacked, how that works in practice, which will, I think, alleviate some of the unknowns, which create, uncertainty. And that's a huge part. Yes. And then we can also go a step further and target those specific zones and areas that qualify for increased incentives, so you can try to get to that 40% number. I think the whole industry is on pins and needles waiting for more guidance from the IRA. We've been promising, and I do think that clarity will help quite a bit. And then, it's kind of a question for you, Mark. You said Harbor Springs Municipal is on net metering. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, I have a net metering in my house, and I have a 100% solar house in Harbor Springs because I buy 100% power from them. And if you have solar on your house and you generate excess power, Harbor Springs pays you at the same rate that you would buy back from them.
That local grid has utterly collapsed, right? Just like consumers and DT would tell us it will, because net metering will destroy everything. Being facetious. But the reason I ask is I think having examples like that to point to, talk to state legislators and say this narrative of net metering being impossible is just patently false. Harbor Springs is doing great. I mean, having those examples to point to, I think are very important. I was going to point to BWL because they have a version, but it's not net metering. But that's even better. So thank you for sharing that. Michigan
Interfaith Power Light is part of an effort up north to, there's 4 municipal utilities up there. There's the Lansing Board of Water, the Tri-City Light and Power, Charlevoix, Petoskey, and Harbor Springs. And they want to link those together and create a regional system where they can generate power and move it among the 4 and stuff. And so it's a big deal. But MIPL is playing a role in that as well. And so keep your pencils sharp on that one. Rob, you're going to be one of the first people in Michigan that I think that's going to have to deal with the domestic content credit. I'm interested to see how that works out.
Yeah,
I'd like you to
as well.
Come back and tell us about it because
I'm very interested in that. I've been keen to be able to determine that ever since the bill was passed. There's some very exciting things coming in the future that I think will help. I don't know if anyone's heard of potential for sodium batteries or soda ash based batteries, where it just so happens the United States is sitting on 90% of the world's available soda ash that can be used. And oh boy, there you go, domestic content satisfied for batteries. So there's a lot to look forward to. We just need things to kind of start to fall in place. But yes, that is one of the chief things I'm concerned about is how do we satisfy domestic content? But we need that that clarification and guidance from the IRA to lay that out, and from the Treasury Department. And
this fall, Chuck Hookham, who is many of you know, and he's done probably more large scale solar than anybody else in the country. If he's not, he's certainly in the top 5. And he's now working with the National Institutes of Standards and Technologies to come up with standards for community solar, community storage. So it's a community-based storage where, you know, that's sited someplace, and anybody can, I as a homeowner can put up a solar system then and choose to send use that, interact with that storage, and communities can run it. It doesn't have to be done by a municipal utility, but it certainly is. Anyway, Chuck's going to be coming to speak about that in the fall, and you're all on the list, and it'll be a heads up. Because that solves a number of problems too. I mean, one of the things about batteries, they are expensive, and, you know, scale makes a big difference. Even if you got distributed solar, that makes a lot of sense to do it that way. But, you know, distributed storage, you know, may not want to be the best option, and especially if you could bulk buy, you know, a couple megawatts of solar storage and site it in places, perhaps on land bank property that, you know, for whatever reason, the retail can't get it up to retail standards. But keep an eye on that as well. So we'll be doing that this fall. That'll be a good one. We have time for one more question or comment. Anybody? John Freeman, you want to throw your 2 cents in here?
No, I just want to thank the presenters for a very interesting, presentation. And it's always wonderful to hear about these new experiments taking place on how to utilize solar, particularly how to help support solar for low and moderate income families, because, you know, the transition is only going to work if everybody, no matter what their income level is, or no matter what their situation in life is, that they can participate in this transition to save money and to be able to do their part in fighting climate change. So again, thank you so much.
Great. All right. Well, David, Roxanne, Rob,
Thank you very much.
John Sarver, thank you as well for your technical support in making all this happen. John takes care of all of our recordings, and he, the rest of us are Luddites, but John is our technical expert on this kind of stuff. And so thank you so much. He always makes us look good.